Hey, good morning, everybody. Looking like a little bit of a cool morning, rainy, but looking like it's going to clear up for the day. I wanted to kind of touch base. I know I talked a lot yesterday about, this whole white guilt and this white shaming and the racism that's there, towards everybody that's white at this point. One thing that I wanted to touch on that I didn't touch on yesterday about that was that you have a lot of members of the black community and their families that are told to fear white people. And they may not have an experience with anybody that's white. And it's kind of a tragedy because then, from the time they're growing up as young kids, they're just told to fear white people. And, being in the city, growing up in the city, they never really have a chance to be exposed to anybody that's white. So what I've done for a long time is every time I'm ever around anybody that is of any ethnicity, I don't care. I just act like they're me. They're like their family, like they're a friend. I'm trying to act like anything's different. And like I said, I've been blessed to have been around a whole bunch of different types of people, different ethnicities, which has been great. And taking the opportunity, I think, to just smile and wave at somebody or to say hi, shake their hand. I think that's a big deal. So I wanted to say that. I was thinking about that. But moving on to the lockdown and everything that's going on, now we've got a situation where our gyms aren't going to be allowed to be opened up. We've got, it looks like schools are probably not going to be opening in September, which that's a whole nother discussion for another day, to talk about what's going on with that. But it looks like, whatever phase four with the gyms that were going to be open, they're no longer going to be opened. Um, and this just begs the question, why? Why aren't the gyms going to be open? Why aren't so many other businesses, going to be allowed to be open? And one thing that I've heard, from a lot of leftists are that, well, I wouldn't want to be in a massage parlor or I wouldn't want to be in a church. A church is a big one. So that narrative has been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed on people, told that, hey, if you are going to be in a church, it's a very dangerous place to be. If you're going to be in a gym, that's a very dangerous place to be. And it just defies logic. It doesn't make any sense. Especially when from the very beginning of this thing, truckers have been allowed to do their thing. Essential employees have been able to do their thing, right? You have your supermarket workers, you have your Home Depot employees, you have what else was essential? So all kinds of businesses that operated, manufacturers that were, any processors, fast food, they were allowed to operate inside through a drive-through. All, like I said, this I maintained this entire time. I said 50%, but it was probably even more of the country stayed working and stayed interacting with people before the whole mask mandate, and I'm going to get to that in a minute too. But all of these people were working, and the healthcare workers that were on the so-called front lines, they weren't getting sick. They weren't, well, they were washing hands and they were doing this and they were doing that. Well, that, right. So very simple measures that we've all employed our entire lives, we've been able to prevent ourselves from getting sick. That's how people prevented themselves from getting sick. Don't touch your face. Don't put your fingers in your mouth. Wash your hands. Don't touch your eyes. Don't rub your eyes. Common sense stuff that we have learned from the very beginning. So, it's just this prolonging of everything. And again, always get back to the countries that stayed open. And the countries that never shut down, 3 weeks they peaked. And everybody wants to compare. Well, those are smaller countries. It's not indicative of what could happen here in this country. Well, we have 50 states. Some of the states shut down borders and still have borders shut down. Now they're mandating that if people come back from one of these states that they visit, they need to quarantine. However, truckers, they don't have to quarantine. If you travel by car, you don't have to quarantine. You're supposed to, but how are they going to measure that or gauge that? But if you travel by plane, they're going to force you into quarantine. It's just ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And you have these politicians, like I just watched these politicians, these mayors of these towns or these cities, they are mandating masks, and when in our lives, I was trying to think today, when in our lives have we had anything that, a personal decision that we would make for ourselves? When has there ever been a time where we have been told, you have to do this, you have to wear this? I mean, a hard hat, okay, if you're on a work site, different things of that nature, sure, okay, if you got to wear a steel toe boot, something. But again, it goes to this whole vaccination mentality where they're trying to indoctrinate and program as many people as they can. So when you have that scientific conversation with people about vaccinations and you say, hey, if you want to be vaccinated, get vaccinated. The vaccination's supposed to work. It'll protect you. Well, yeah, but we got to have everybody vaccinated. Well, why do you have to have everybody vaccinated? Well, because, we got to protect at-risk people. Well, why shouldn't the at-risk people just protect themselves and take extra precautionary measures and stay at home or do whatever they need to do to protect themselves? Well, that's not fair to them. They shouldn't have to be subjected. What do you mean they shouldn't have to be subjected to that? They've been subjected to that their entire lives. They know how to protect themselves from disease and infection. They know where they should avoid. They know when they should stay in. They know what they should do. But so everybody should be vaccinated to protect the at-risk people. And the percentages vary of how many people they consider at risk, 1% to 3%, whatever that is. So the masks are the same thing. The masks are, well, everybody should wear masks because it's common courtesy. That's what they've done. They've changed everybody's thinking so quickly to say, hey, if you wear a mask, if you don't wear a mask, it's inconsiderate and it's being rude and you're not taking into regard other people's safety. It's not. If I don't wear a mask, it doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. If somebody is at risk, then they can stay at home. They have a lot of different options to be able to get, and they know this, and they accept that. It sucks that they're, sick, and they know it, but they also know that they have to adjust their lifestyle, that they don't expect everybody else to adjust their lifestyle, So the science keeps coming in more and more and more and more and more and more. And I just posted something on my Facebook page today, detailed research and scientific data on the masks. Now, OSHA says 19.5. I thought it was 19.25, but it's 19.5 if it drops below. And the new test said it drops down to like 15%. And if it drops down below 19.5, according to OSHA, and CDC and WHO, that it is a dangerous situation, that you are oxygen deprived, oxygen deficient. That's at 19.5. Now you drop down to 15% wearing that mask. Forget about it. The mask is dirty. The mask is unsanitary. You're touching it constantly. You're pulling it down. You're putting it over as you're touching things in the supermarket. So now the mask is no longer effective, completely contaminated. So that's another little bit on the mask to carry over from what I had yesterday. Driving out in the country yesterday, one thing that I noticed was that there was a lot of traffic, which is good. I've been driving around the entire time for, months, and it was dead and quiet. And honestly, it kind of was nice. You didn't have to drive around with traffic. You think about, the environment with, without all the pollution and the exhaust fumes from vehicles and trucks and everything else that was going on. That was kind of nice, right? The slowdown was nice. But again, it was forced. It was and wrongfully forced on everybody. But driving around, you're seeing the traffic, you're seeing everybody driving around. It's kind of encouraging now. Everybody's like fed up. It's summertime. People are ready to enjoy themselves. They're ready to have fun and do different things. But then you have everybody, the leftists and, the angry mob that are saying, in the media and the people in politics that have these venues to express their opinions, not facts, just opinions. And they say, oh, no. Not too fast. We're still going to control you. We still own you. We're not going to let you go concerts. We're not going to let you gather. We're not going to let you go to sporting events. The NFL is saying that they're going to let each team and the town and the ordinances or the laws, whatever they have, to make their own decision, which they're removing liability from themselves. It's a smart move, but it's a tough move as well. It's kind of a coward move from the NFL. Take a stand. Somebody, UFC took a stand. They said, we're running events. WWE never shut down. Certain things never shut down. There were certain churches. There was a pastor down in Florida. He never shut down. And that pastor in Florida, because he never shut his church down, he stood up. They arrested him, and then he was wrongfully arrested. He was released. Churches down in Florida were able to stay open because of that one man. One person can make a difference. But you just imagine, if someone like the NFL, UFC is inspirational, what they've done, WWE is inspirational, any church that has stayed open, anybody has defied these orders, like everybody's used this term, but the draconian orders, the unconstitutional orders. These orders that violate our civil rights, these orders that are now not only being challenged, but the people who stood by these orders or who made these orders are actually across the country being arrested now by civilians, or at least using the sheriff's departments to issue subpoenas that were created, written up, the laws that were broken, the violations that were made. They were taken to the DA. The DA issued a subpoena. The subpoena was delivered to the sheriff, and then the sheriff had to deliver that subpoena to the official who made the order or the law that was unconstitutional, that they violated. That's happening all over the country, guys. People are rising up, and they're starting to stand up. And, it's so quick for us to accept what has happened, because we're told, hey, it's for everybody's good, right? We bought into that. Here, it was 10 days, bend the trend, slow the curve, and then it just keeps getting moved. And you got to ask yourself, why is everything being moved constantly? And why are we being bombarded with this information and these images of needing to wear masks, being programmed to do that, needing to accept the fact that mandatory vaccinations are coming, needing to shut down our businesses, put ourselves at risk, our homes at risk, our family at risk, our elderly at risk. Why did we accept all of that? And one of the things that I say is never again. When we're out at these protests, it's never again. And the only way it never happens again is if we never forget what happened. If we never forget the lies that were told to us incessantly from day one, recording those lies, chronicling those lies, and then making sure that we remind ourselves that these people lied. These people who were in positions of authority that were supposed to have our trust, they didn't have our trust. They, for whatever motivation, for whatever reason, continued to lie. Here in Erie County, pulling cars, one lie after another. Mayor Byron Brown, one lie after another. County health departments all over the state, one lie after another. The Howard Zucker, now he's nowhere around. This guy, this state health official, huge on the radio, Pandora, every 5 minutes having to hear this guy talk. Now all of a sudden everything's a lie. You don't hear anything about him. Cuomo going on and just all kinds of new lies, just new lie after new lie after new lie. His orders, which killed people in our elderly care facilities, directly. Now I guess they're really seriously considering bringing murder charges against him. There's a huge faction here in New York that very intelligent people, attorneys, that they're pissed. And how he handled it, and then just the incessant lies, just trying to, project and redirect blame that off of him. The source is him. It all goes down to him. And now he's trying to save his ass. And, here's a guy that just laughed at people. This is a guy that said every life counts. So I don't care if you're shut down. I don't care if you can't get unemployment. I don't care if you don't want to wear a mask. I don't care if you're going to commit suicide. Literally said, I don't care if you're going to commit suicide. At least you're not hurting somebody else. His words. It's all recorded. A reporter asked him, about suicides and, the crisis that was happening throughout the course of this. His words were, I don't care if we could save one life. Well, except if you're a senior, except if you're a mentally ill person, except somebody who's elderly in a facility or at home, then those lives don't matter, They really didn't. So just take a look at that stuff, guys. Take a look at the lies. Ask yourself why. That's the big question for me. And everybody asks me, well, Pete, why is it do you think that they're doing what they're doing? In my opinion, it's there's a whole bunch of it, and I could get into that in another live that I do, because there are reasons, there are very specific reasons why we got to this point and how all of this was able to be perpetrated on us. But remember this, guys, the orders that are put in place are violating current laws. So laws, why did they have a law in the mask to say that or law in the books in New York State to say you can't wear a mask? Why was that? Why did OSHA say don't wear a mask? You're going to be oxygen deprived. Why did WHO and CDC all say unless you're sick or at risk, don't wear a mask? And I know, Holly, and so all of these places, so why did it change? And in my opinion, it's changing because they want more control. They want to erode. So what happened, with the United States? We had all kinds of freedoms, right? People had ownership of property. When that changed around the end of the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century, where allodal titles for property ownership, that was transferred. What allodal title meant was that you actually had ownership of your property. Then in the late 19th, early 20th century, what happened was all these towns and cities incorporated and they became a business. They took ownership of all the land. That happened, one huge right eroded. Then you had constitutional right, which is to own property. And then in the 20s and the 30s, the establishment of the Federal Reserve, that took away the gold standard. And they made it illegal for people to own gold during that time. That removed another right to own property and money to take care of yourself. In the 50s, they created DMVs. And the DMVs then removed your right. They reprogrammed everybody, which was a right. And people still today have that right to travel. They removed that right. They went to a DMV setup and, they developed a corporation outside of the purview of the voters. And it was its own autonomous agency. And they said that, hey, now driving and travel is a privilege. And how often do we say that as kids? It's not a privilege, it's a right. Travel is a right guaranteed constitutionally. And you look it up. And the only time that you have to, it can be regulated is if it's for business, if it's for commerce. Then if it's for a commercial reason, then it can be regulated. It's the only reason. But if it's for purposes of travel, you have that right guaranteed. That was removed, right? Education, we talk about that. The factory style education system that we still have from the early part of the 20th century in most of this country, that has failed at epidemic and pandemic levels. That removed our children's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, And then you talk about the programming and, how, Bill Gates got involved with Common Core and, how he tried to reprogram our students and our kids and families and just completely frustrate the educational community and parents and students. And you take a look at our math scores and how they compare to the rest of the world and how they dropped. That was another erosion of our rights. And then the systematic erosion of our Second Amendment. You have the systematic erosion of our freedom for expression and speech. being regulated by Facebook and Google. Project Veritas, that guy's amazing. They had a couple of Facebook insiders that just came out. If you haven't watched it, watch it. Watch how they expose what Facebook has been doing and how they have been censoring and silencing, people who are conservatives. So, but it doesn't stop at the Google and the Facebook level. It doesn't stop at the YouTube level, which is owned by Google. It doesn't just stop there. Instagram, which Facebook owns, all of them. All of these entities, these major social media networks, which are, the town squares for all of us to share information. They have people and contractors that are out there admitting that they actively censor conservatives. That's a fact. But it's not just that, guys. You take a look at and it doesn't even have to be a conservative, right? It can be a Democrat who, isn't a leftist, but they just want certain things and they think as a Democrat. So many of us are on the same page. So many of us are like-minded. And, whatever political party we affiliate with or that we feel like we connect with best. If we express an opinion that is outside the norm or outside what the media is pushing on everybody or at that time, then what happens, right? If we're in business by ourselves, Holly knows this, that if you can't express yourself, you can't do it because you're going to fear losing customers. If you have a business, a larger business, you're going to fear that you're going to lose the business that you have with your customers that you have. And then you're fearful for the employees that you have. If you work for a company, you're not allowed to express yourself in that way because you could be fired. If you were a nurse or a medical professional during this pandemic, is that you then were going to be fired. You were told you would be fired if you talked about it. And in some cases, you were fired. So it's just a silencing. And the only reason we're allowed to be silenced is because we allow ourselves to be silenced. And when I take a look at, the everything that I just talked about, it is this freedom of speech. It is those freedoms that we have, those freedoms that remain with us constitutionally that they're trying to take now. And they're trying to completely instill fear in everybody. It is far-reaching and expanding out as large an area as they possibly can in this country, so that people feel like, oh yeah, right. I need government. I need government. No, they don't realize that no, government is there to serve us. That's it. It's not intended to be weaponized against us. It's not intended to work against us in any way. It's not intended to be its own agency, its own end. It's there to serve us, the people. That is it. And when you take a look at all of the government agencies that are out there right now, clearly, especially in this state, and I wanted to get back to this too, because being out in the country, you take a look and you go, man, everything is pretty well taken care of. Not large government out there, probably extremely conservative. And I'm not going to say that all conservative areas are, bastions of hope and light and everything else, because certainly they're not. We've seen that across the country, right? There's despair and poverty, and people not having much all across the country. But, driving through the country, I just think, I drive and I look and I go, man, each one of these places that care about their property, they're working hard to make a living and do what they've got to do. And that's all it should be. Government shouldn't be there to tell me ever what I got to wear on my face. Government should never be there to tell me I got to shut my business down. Government should never be there to tell me that I'm essential or not essential. That's not your decision to make. If you deem that liquor stores, abortion clinics, major corporations, supermarkets, the fast food drive-thrus, if you deem all of that stuff essential, and they've got thousands of people, tens of thousands of people going through that store every single day, then I'm certainly essential, especially if I'm only coming in. I'm not a danger or a hazard to anybody. So when government gets too big, getting back to my point, um, that's part of the reason, you know. Could it be just like, an organic thing, or is it a planned and concocted thing? In my opinion, it's planned and concocted. It's not that simple. You can't have what happened in this country with the same exact things happening state after state after state if it's not organized and concocted and planned. You just can't have it happen. You even hear the same words, the same arguments, the same narrative over and over and over again. And each one, they use the same arguments over and over and over again. So, and well, Pete, why would they want to have all that? What do they stand to gain? What do they stand to benefit? And that's a great question. That's an answer I don't have. I don't have that answer. Like, who is manipulating and pulling the strings? Is it, who could it be? I don't know. I know the suggestions that have been out there, and I know who has been accused, and I've watched some very smart people, say that this is this, and this is this, and this is this, but I don't have any definitive answers on who is pulling the strings and who has organized this at this point. But for a fact, it is planned and it is concocted. When you see each step that's taken, repeated and replicated from town to town and state to state and country to country, it's all centralized in one place. And then you never hear about those countries that opted, or those states or those provinces in Canada that opted to not go down that road of shutdown. You never, ever, ever hear about it, ever. Just like you never hear about the retractions, when the media goes and pushes whatever false narrative it is that they're looking to push on any given day. So those are some of the things that I just wanted to talk about. I think that, there is a lot of happiness. There is a lot of joy out there right now. I think people are fed up and they're happy being able to be out. Does it suck that, we still have gyms closed and, and people can't go to those? Yeah, it does. Is it a trivial thing? For some people, yeah. But for a lot of people, that's thing, man. They really look forward to going to the gym and interacting with people. It just defy. I get it. People, oh, Pete, you got, people sneezing and people sweating and yeah. I mean, that has always happened. SARS, every virus has been around. H1, all of those viruses are there. Rotavirus, which the media made a huge, remember when the media made a big deal about rotavirus and how dangerous it was? It's snot coming out of your face. I mean, that's going back 20 years or whatever. I remember some crazy things sometimes, but you have viruses everywhere in a gym. You're always going to have it. If people aren't falling ill and dying at the gym. Just like they're not falling ill and dying at a small business. And you have all of these different rules and regulations that are in there, and they're meant to control. They're meant to silence. That's what's there. But there are people that are stepping up. There are people coming together, especially here, which I've talked about. So many great minds and so many great people that have come together. So be encouraged by that. I had a conversation yesterday, and I'll end on this. With a friend of mine here that I met through this whole thing. Not going to give his name. He's looking for some anonymity. But he came up with a great idea, and he was feeling really, really bad yesterday. And, he was torn. He was in, tears and everything else. And we were able to have a conversation. And by the end of the conversation that we had, smiling and he's laughing and he's upbeat and he's happy and he's encouraged and he's looking forward to doing things. And I go, buddy, I know everybody can't do everything, for exposure, for coming out into a rally or a protest. I get it. That's dangerous for you. Even getting involved politically, writing letters or emails or petitions and doing those kinds of things, that could potentially be dangerous or hazardous for you. I get that, but I said, do something. You're a smart guy, man. I said, you are in a power of influence, or you are in a position of influence. Even if you can just influence your family and influence your friends by having those, that positivity and those conversations with them, not combative conversations, but healthy discourse, healthy dialogue. I said, you can start there. And it made him so happy. And I said, I says, I have some wacky out there theories too, man. I don't share with everybody. I have to be kind of reserved. And even though I know some of them are absolutely true, I know that if I share those experiences that I've had, people are going to be like, whoa. And yeah, believe it or not, with all of the stuff that I do share, there's stuff out there that I do keep close to the vest. But I said, you could share that with me. I told him, I says, I can be that person for you to talk to me about whatever you want. And I have so many people that reach out to me on a daily basis, and I feel so blessed. And these are business owners. These are community leaders in our area here, in our state. And these are people that they have feelings and they have thoughts and they have concerns and they have fears too. I know a lot of times we take a look at people that they're in those positions and nothing affects them, but that's not the truth. So I was talking to him, he left the conversation and he's texting me the rest of the day, and he's sending me pictures of he and his son and he and his daughter, and great pictures. And we just started getting into a conversation, and that girl Erin, and this is what happened, and I said, you can do something, anything. And he goes, the girl Erin, the RN, who we all know, amazing, the reports that she did, and how she exposed the truth. And it wasn't just her, it was so many other people that had exposed the truth even before her that were working hard. And he goes, wouldn't it be great if we could bring Erin in to do a speech? And I go, man, that's what I'm talking about. Right there, you just did something that nobody else did or nobody else thought of or nobody could do. He's in a position to be able to do that. Is she going to come here and talk? I don't know. But would it be amazing? Absolutely it would be. Would it benefit Erin? Sure. Sell tickets. He has access to a hotel where she could stay, a very nice hotel, as a matter of fact, that she could stay and, be put up and eat and everything else. And, out of whoever wanted to come in from out of town, and, he has access to one of the theaters locally here. And, it seats 500. So selling tickets, it would be great. And I go, that is exactly what I'm talking about right there. And I'm going to support him in every way that I can. We're going to get together for dinner on Saturday, talk about that, try to get her out here. And, we're going to try to make sure that we capitalize on the movement that's going on right now. This groundswell of people that are fed up. And it is Democrats, guys. It's liberals. It's conservatives. It's libertarians. It's Republicans. We're all fed up with what happened here. And, if we're not careful, it can happen again very quickly. And we're seeing that, with the continued and prolonged shutdown here that always is changing, ever changing in Erie County and in this state and across the country. It's going to be very easy for them to shut and lock everything down again. Make no mistake about that. People will again comply and they will accept it, and you're going to be in the same position in another few months. I hope and pray it doesn't happen. I hope that the people who are working hard to fight and combat this are going to be able to do that. And I hope that we're going to be able to put in measures and provisions in place that already exist, with the attorneys that are out there that are working hard on this to prevent that or avoid that from happening. Like I said, never again. But, it is a very real possibility. So anyways, thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate your time. Love y'all. And I will see you, if not later,